there, folks. Austin Baumgarten here with Keller Williams Realty Northwest Montana and Hidden Homes Montana. We're here at the Hidden Homes Show. Have a wonderful guest we get to introduce right now, Mr. Dave Fetveit. He is the broker-owner of Lakeside Pure West and actually a partner in all of Pure West in the state of Montana, which is the largest brokerage in all of Montana. Welcome. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Bringing Dave on board right now as someone that's been in the real estate space in the Flathead Valley for quite some time. One of the big things that's been, on my mind is that Dave knows a lot about what's going on with Flathead Lake Real Estate, but also just the real estate market in general. So we wanted to have a nice little conversation about that. And the story I was going to give, and Dave doesn't know this yet, is that when I first got into real estate, this is it was a big thing. Like I looked up to you quite a bit. Because I got my real estate license. I was driving around Flathead Lake with my mom in the car, and she had just gotten her real estate license over in Coeur d'Alene, and we're just talking about, like, what is real estate? What's it going to be? And we were driving around the lake and looking at all these houses, and I kept seeing your signs along the lake, and I was like, Mom, I'm going to be that guy sometime. And I truly did that. That's a real story. And so it's kind of nice to have you here as someone I've looked up to truly in the space and have only heard great things from other agents about who you are, not just as an agent, but as just a person in general. So that's your boat.
Thank you very much. It's very flattering. And I didn't know this was the Hidden Story show. I thought it was a Hidden Home show. But no, that's great. No, I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
And so we're going to ask some questions. We're going to have a kind of nice little conversation and just see what's going on. I know a lot of people right now are looking, like, we hear the same questions every single day. And I think the biggest one from everyone is, how's the market, right? And we hear how's the market, and that's such a loaded question because there's so many different things going on.
Right.
And I want to get into that too. But I really want to know kind of where your backstory is. And maybe even your first job.
Sure.
And then how you kind of got into the real estate space, how long you've been in Montana, all that stuff.
You have my whole life story.
All of it in one, and go. That's all you get.
That's all I get.
2 minutes.
So I'm actually a third generation native. I was born just up the street here in Kalispell General, which is now Eastside Brick, which isn't a hotel anymore. But one of the condos is still the maternity ward where I was actually born. They tore down half the hospital. The other one's still there.
Yep.
But and my grandma was born on Main Street, actually another just a couple hundred yards from here. She actually had an interesting story about the Outlaw Inn, which is right across the street. When she was a little girl, that's where all of the Native Americans would come and camp to trade with people in Kalispell, and she would go out as a little girl and trade with the Indians as they came and camped right here where the Outlaw Inn is, because it was just down the street from her house. But anyway, so it's a long family history in the Flathead and on Flathead Lake. My great-grandpa built a place in Table Bay back in the 40s, and that's where we grew up. So my dad grew up on Flathead Lake, and it's just always been obviously a part of my life. We had that family place for years and years, and even when we moved away, so my parents were missionaries. We moved away, traveled the world when I was a kid, and ended up settling in Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 20 years. So then every summer, of course, was the trip to Montana, Flathead Lake, which I think almost living in Arizona and visiting Flathead Lake made Flathead Lake more important to me than actually just growing up here all the time. You know what I mean? Like being from here and wanting to always get back was kind of always that allure of Flathead Lake. I mean, it was one of those things that we drive up, in the summer we'd get up here, and the first thing, like when we first saw the lake, whether if we were coming from the south and it was in Polson, or if we were usually coming over and hitting Dayton a Big Arm, like we just had to stop the car, get out, and touch the water. Like it was like a something that we just did as a family. So
that's awesome.
Flathead Lake's just always been a very, very special place to me. Graduated, met my wife at University of Arizona in Tucson, where I graduated. I have a degree in molecular and cellular biology.
Really?
Turns out is an excellent background for selling real estate.
Who knew?
And
you went to Arizona State?
No, University of Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
That's
right. Sorry.
Wildcat, not the Sun Devils.
Okay.
But yeah, no, very important differentiation. So met my wife down there, graduated. We moved up to Peoria. I lived in the Phoenix area, and actually my first job I was using my degree for $8 an hour. I got a degree working at a lab, environmental sciences lab. The business boomed. I went from being an entry-level employee to being an owner of a 300 employee operation. kind of the biotech industry. We sold the company in 2004 to a publicly traded company out of the UK, ran that division for a while, and then we acquired a couple of our U.S. Competitors, spun it all up, and rolled off the U.S. operations to a private equity firm in the Bay Area in 2007. So in the middle of all that, it'd always been my dream, and we'd started a family down in Arizona, and we're doing that whole kind of corporate life. I was traveling a lot. We had our competitors that we acquired. One was in the Bay Area, one was in New Jersey, and when we sold the company, for the primary owners of that company, said, hey, we want to get out of our contracts early and leave, and our new owner said, fine, you can do that as long as David stays and runs the company. And I said, sure, I'll stay and run the company if I can do it from Montana. So that was that's ultimately what leveraged me to be able to get back up here. And they said, hey, as long as you've got an airport. I said, oh, we have an international airport.
It is.
It's Glacier Park International.
It does, exactly.
I didn't tell them that it was
goes
just
to Canada.
Cessnas going up to Lethbridge, but they didn't need to know that. But so that was literally my hook. And I did. So we came back up here in 2005, moved my family up, had 3 boys at the time. I've got 4 boys total.
Jeez.
Which was another draw. I wanted to be able to raise my boys here too, and be on Flathead Lake with the boys. That was a very important part of the story. So, but ultimately, running that company, running a nationwide company. So we had 3 main operations: Phoenix, San Bruno, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, with 23 satellite locations across the country. I was just traveling everywhere.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was just, I'm never seeing my family, never being in the Flathead, which is the reason I moved here. So when we spun off, when we kind of rolled up the U.S. operations and sold that off to a private equity firm, that was kind of my opportunity to get out. So got out in 2007 and thought, okay, I want to do something where I'm not traveling, stay local. What can I do? And at the time, so this is, the peak of the last cycle was 2006, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking around going, well, these real estate brokers seem to be doing pretty well, and they don't have, the only time they travel is when they go on vacation. So I said, great, I'll get a real estate license. And I was kind of toying around with doing property management, doing real estate brokerage, didn't know what I wanted to do. Got my license, and Ellie Stimson was nice enough to take me in, and it was Trails West Real Estate, Trails West Eagle Bend Real Estate at the time.
Mm-hmm.
With an office right there in Lakeside, so I had an office less than a mile from my house. So just start the business, and of course, then 2008 happens, complete crash. Didn't make money for the first. Well, I officially lost money the first 3 years of the business, and then the next 2 years started making money. I think I actually broke even year 5. Is when I broke even in the real estate business. And I was doing it full time. So I wasn't working another job.
2011, 2012?
So 11, 12,
okay.
Is when I finally started making money in the business. And actually, and Ellie told me, and she, when I first came into the office and she said, I said, hey, can I hang my license with you? She said, sure, but just know you're not going to make money for 3 years. It takes 3 years to get established. And I said, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Like, I'll do better than that. No, it took 3 years. Wow. Of course, that was a really bad recessionary time. But anyway, that's ultimately what got me into the business. And yeah, I feel like I'm living. People ask me what I do. I'm living the dream. I got my office in Lakeside, a mile from where I live, and I got a brewery halfway between my house and the office.
So, you're set.
And I can see the lake from all 3.
That's awesome.
What else do I need?
Oh man. All right. Good stuff. Well, okay. So questions here. I'm always wondering because I hear your name more than just like on real estate signs. So community involvement. Actually, I was going to show a house one time, and you're like, sorry, I have to meet with it was some board in Lakeside or something like that. So where is your community involvement the most? Like,
yeah, so I kind of, my community involvement kind of gets dropped into a couple different buckets. I mean, there's like the real estate related, service that I feel is kind of, I'm obligated to, since this business has given me so much, I want to give back. So there's like the real estate, nonprofit bucket, and then there's like the community bucket, and then there's kind of like my personal, the stuff that I'm committed to that's important to me. So business-wise, I serve on the local MLS board. I've been the past president. I'm the treasurer currently for NMAR. Mm-hmm. I'm also one of the board of governors on the statewide MLS. well, it's not statewide, it's regional, the regional MLS, which is basically all of Western Montana. So I'm one of the Board of Governors representing NMAR on that board, and I'm currently the treasurer of that organization, and have been that's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I've been involved in that. And that's,
Wow.
and it's a long commitment on the MLS side, because you kind of, the MLS is kind of the business side of the business, and the Realtor Association is the association side. And so it takes a while to get to know the MLS side. So it's really a long-term commitment. I'll probably still have to do another 3 or 4 years to work my way all the way through the regional side. But so anyway, so that's kind of the business side of things. And then just community organizations. I've been part of the Lakeside Summers Chamber of Commerce for 12 years. I've been the president, I think, for 8 or 9. I keep on trying to pass it on to somebody else, and nobody else will run for president.
Got to keep going for it.
But it's one of those things. I mean, Lakeside's a small town, and so it's kind of cool. As long as you're working and you're involved and you're doing the events and doing all that kind of stuff, there's no reason really to change it up a lot. So I've been heavily involved in the Chamber of Commerce. We had an organization for a while called the West Shore Visitors Bureau. Back in the recession time, we were trying to get people to come to the West Shore. Worked hard on that, but we've since rolled that one up. And then we've got, and then there's Montana West Economic Development as well, that I serve as representative, kind of liaison to the West Shore and the Flathead Lake area on that one as well. And then there's my personal things, which I'm really committed to. Education is one of my personal things that I'm really committed to, and it's important to me. So I've been on the board of the Stillwater Christian School for 14 years now.
Okay.
And I'm also on the foundation board for Flathead Valley Community College, and serve on that as well, and on the events committee, and help them do a lot of fundraising for scholarships and everything they do for the college. So, and there's a couple other boards. Those are the big ones.
How do you? I'm like looking at Ryan over here. I'm like, when do you have time to do anything?
I know.
No, it's like,
I know.
No, that's awesome
it's
though.
It's a lot.
Well, I mean, I like hearing that. There's some big things there that I heard. Obviously, it's just like, the education's huge. It just makes you a more powerful real estate agent in general, and just like it's just good for your overall health. But I think the other things too is like, out of all that, starting kind of in a recession, and even mentioning some stuff in the community boards and trying to draw people there. I guess the question I want to kind of throw off the cuff, like, how was that time, starting real estate and kind of going into boards and everything during that time, and seeing where Flathead Valley was during 2008, 9, 10?
That's why I'm on so many boards. I had time back then.
Oh, there you go.
When you're only
You get stuck in them.
when you're only doing 10, 15 transactions a year, you have time to do these things.
Yeah.
But and some of it's my natural bent. I like to be involved. I like to work with people, and I've got a natural kind of leadership bent. People, I get involved in a group, and it doesn't take long to be like, hey, well, Fetveit needs to be in charge. Let's have him do this, and this. And so it just kind of naturally happens, and which I embrace, and I love it, because it's that whole, if you're going to be part of a community, I think it's really important to, when people say, oh, I want to give back, I don't really see it as giving back. I literally see it as like being the legs and feet that is propelling it forward. You know what I mean? It's not really giving back. It's doing the work of the community, which is, every time there's an event, we do, down at Lakeside, one of my favorite things in the summer, second Saturday of every July, we have the Lakeside Fair, and it's a parade, and it's a watermelon eating contest. My wife Michelle and I have been hosting the watermelon eating contest now for like 12 years, and it's just little community events like that. It's just a blast. Like, it's just so much fun to bring all the kids in and have the music going and kids read. And it's part of, I guess, a lot of that's kind of part of the whole allure of the Flathead Valley and Flathead Lake is. And I tell people this all the time. It's kind of like turning the clock back. You know what I mean? It's like when you're coming from other parts of the country, that the hustle bustle of the city, or if you're on some of these progressive cities that have really moved forward culturally and politically, you come to the Flathead and it's like, this is kind of the way it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. To be able to, that you can put your kid in a watermelon eating contest, and guess what? The health department hasn't checked us out, and we're not charging, and there's not really any prizes other than maybe some coupons, but we, the watermelons are safe. Don't worry,
Yeah.
I
get it.
It's those
like
things that
nostalgia.
people trust us to put this on, and they want to come do it. So those kind of things I think are important. And again, to keep that sense of community and who we are, and that overall attraction for why people come here in the first place.
Well, Sonny, we actually, you're reminding me of a lot of like my father-in-law, Marshall Noyce, was actually on the podcast, was it maybe 3 or 4 times ago? We were talking about that, and like I kind of watch him too, and I'm hearing some of this in you, is the whole like, being the legs, like being actually like working the community, like so involved where it's just like I'm trying to build it around me, and it's not just that whole like, well, I do this because I need to do it to
Yeah.
show that I do community
If you want
efforts.
to give back, just write a check.
Well, people will do that, but I mean,
Which they do.
Time is huge, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you can actually be involved in like changing something,
Yeah.
that's why I understand that feeling. Where it's just like, oh my gosh, we made a change. Like that feels good.
Yeah,
right.
We're
And
actually
so-
moving forward, finding problems in the community that come forward. I mean, especially because, there are with the exception of Polson, none of the communities around Flathead Lake are incorporated. We're all just county, villages, and so it really, all of our EMTs and QRU, that's all volunteer. Like all the firefighters are volunteer. Like everybody's volunteer, and so that's just part of, the heart of those communities. If you want them to run, we don't have a mayor, we don't have a city council.
Yep.
You just stand up and start getting it done.
That's cool. I like it.
So it's pretty cool.
Well, Dave, thank you for sharing about the community, sharing about kind of what's going on. Someone that's been on Flathead Lake as not just a realtor, but I know you live near that area and been loving it your entire life, right? Been raised on it. What are the biggest changes you've seen, not just on Flathead Lake, but maybe even Flathead County in general? And then also, I guess, the biggest changes you've seen on the shoreline in general. I already said general twice, but that's okay. Who cares?
I'll generalize my answer.
You're going to
It'll be
generalize
okay.
it? Yes, you got it. He's got my back. He's got my back.
I got you. I mean, I don't know. Change is, obviously is very subjective, right? Because I've lived in places that have seen change that are just radical, like completely. Like you don't recognize them when you go back, right?
Yeah.
So honestly, being spending time on Flathead Lake my entire life, honestly, I think the change has been relatively incremental and actually kind of slow. I mean, I think there's been in this, during the COVID area, people running around with their hair on fire because, all of a sudden we grew by 20% year over year, maybe a year and a half. So maybe we grew, 35%, 40%, which is big. I mean, because we're a small community. I mean, there's only 120,000 people in the county, and you add another 25,000 people, you're going to feel that, right? I mean, so I think some of that's been an effect. But really, like when I get in the boat and cruise the shoreline down by where my old family homestead was back in the 40s, it really doesn't look that different. There's a few more homes, but it's pretty much still the same place. I mean, and I think, honestly, it's that consistency, I think, that is, again, one of the big draws why people love the lake. I mean, we don't have a 40-story resort in Summers, which, some rumors say could have happened. I mean, we were very close to having that happen in the early 90s when Hagedorn was here. He was looking at Summers instead of going over to Coeur d'Alene. I mean, literally what happened at Coeur d'Alene could have happened in Summers.
Yeah.
It didn't. And Summers is relatively unchanged. I mean, instead of having, it's literally, there's been a yacht club there, and there's really, literally, there's more people, there's more traffic, yes. There's more houses, yes. More of the land's been subdivided. Some of the stuff in the hills has been chopped up. You can see development. But I was, by and large, by most standards around the country where there's been rapid growth, it's relatively unchanged. And I think, and maybe it's just because I'm starting to get a little bit older. I'm not that old, but I did turn 50 this year. When you've seen rapid growth take place and really rapid change take place somewhere, honestly, it's one of the reasons I like living here because I don't think it's changed that much.
Yeah. I think what ends up happening too. I mean, I've been here since 2001, and I was at that was the kind of the start of the a bigger boom was 2001, 2006. Yeah. And I always heard that too. It's like this, everyone's coming here. It's just crazy. Like, be like, go home, such and such state. We all know the states that people want us to go back to. But I've heard that, but it's I've always kind of heard that since I moved here.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest change is traffic, and that's why people get like, if you've really been in traffic. You've really been in traffic. And I was like, it took me a little bit longer.
There's nothing in the state of Montana that even holds a candle to any section of the 405. Anywhere.
405 freeway. Memories.
So, literally, it's a valid point. I mean, I still, my kids, all my kids, 3 of them have graduated from Stillwater Christian School, and so we make the drive from Lakeside to Kalispell for school every day. There's no bus service. And people come here, oh my gosh, you drive your kids to school, 15 miles every day, twice. I'm like, number one, it only takes 13 minutes because the speed limit's 65 or 70. And people spend thousands of dollars on their vacations to come drive that road. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful road. And there's really, even though there's more traffic, it's not traffic. It's not traffic like people know from other parts of the country. So I think it's important to have that perspective from what's going on in the rest of the country and what's going on around. And I think, I think the one, I guess, as we're starting to kind of Monday morning quarterback these last two bubbles, like the '07 bubble that was kind of debt fueled, and then this COVID bubble that we just saw. I think the debt fueled bubble of '06, '07, when you could get money for free and this place really boomed, there was a lot of, the county hadn't done really anything prior to that point to come up with any kind of planning process. And that in that '03, '04, '05 time frame was the wake up call to, like, hey, this place is gonna grow. You better plan for it. And so you see county plans, neighborhood plans sprung up all over the county during that era. And a lot of those projections, we were hockey sticking at the time, and all of the projections, those plans were based on this hockey stick thing going on. Yep. Well, as soon as the recession hit, never happened. But the plans were in place. And so I think a lot of that stuff laid the groundwork for when starting in 18, 19, when we were heading at a good clip, 20 hits, and boom, we go, to the moon. A lot of those things were already in place. And so I think, even though there's obviously going to be exceptions to the rule, but I think by and large, the planning board and all municipalities in the valley have pretty much stuck to their plans that they had in place from the '07, planned growth back then. And we're still not hitting the numbers now that they thought we were going to hit back in '07. We didn't continue on that hockey stick. We dove, and now we're kind of, we're back and getting back to those numbers. And so I think, it's going to be important to continue to plan, obviously, and make sure that we do growth in a smart way. But I think a lot of that's hampered down. We've got a lot of environmental regulations that are coming down through the county. Like, to get a septic permit today, you got to jump through a lot more hoops than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, which is good. And those are the things that are kind of end up being the regulators, I think, to a lot of growth. And whether it's septic or whether it's doing, sewer line extensions or getting sanitary approval, or even in places that are unzoned, no covenants, there's more zoning that keeps getting laid down. So I think those restrictions are going to continue to kind of be the governor.
Well, and I kind of see that too. We went through a subdivision up in Patrick Creek, and I've got some people right now that are in the process of doing a subdivision, and it's like the length of time that takes right now. Yeah, you can only think about how many people are doing the same thing, but also the county can kind of regulate that and be like, hey, we're just going to we're working from 9 to 5 days a week, and we're just going to do what we do, and everyone's in line.
And we're at 20% staffed.
There you go. No, that was a big one too. It's just like having the empathy for that too. It's just you're right.
That's true. You can only do so much. You only push so many papers. And those people, and a lot of those people that are qualified to do that job, can go work for engineering firms that are hiring and make a lot more money. So they're going to jump over to the private sector. So there's a lot of things that are driving. But I guess getting back to Flathead Lake, and you had a question about the shoreline. Like, what's changing on the shoreline? It's interesting because I think in the last cycle we saw a lot of people chopping stuff up. Everybody just wanted to have a section. Like, if they could just get 10 feet of Flathead Lake, they'd be happy with that. If they could just get shared access to Flathead Lake. And so in that '06, '07 bubble, people were just chopping. And I would say in this last run up of the last 3 years, where there's been a lot of movement on the lake, it's almost been the opposite. It's been people that want to come in. They want bigger chunks. They want to, I want to buy my 200 feet of frontage, and I want to see if my neighbors will sell because I want 500 feet of frontage. It's a completely different mindset of really wanting to secure, which I think, the first time around, people just want a piece of it. Second time around, people see the true value, and they really want to preserve that value.
Yeah, no, I can totally agree with that. It's just been it was, people had said, land grab, all these different things. But I understood it was people thought of a home and a homestead differently. I think that's what the past 3 years kind of came about, was that people were they valued it differently.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do to, and then there was a Wall Street Journal article about it this morning talking about how the differences in the two real estate run-ups, because the earlier one in '07 was really it was debt fuel. It was the fact that you could go get free money, and so it was people that didn't necessarily value the land. They could just get free money, and they're like, well, that looks like a good place. It's a good investment. Values are going up. It was literally buying it like stock, right? Like stock is going up, and buy it. It's cryptocurrency. It was basically the cryptocurrency of the day, right? And now, this time around, there's been so many more cash buyers. I mean, there's a lot of liquidity in the market. There's a lot of cash, but it's buyers that are coming in saying, this is valuable. I'm paying cash, especially in a rising inflationary environment. So I think it is a completely different kind of buyer and a completely different kind of mindset, to your point, that it's seeing the value.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm seeing too, and we'll get into kind of where we're going with the market, but like I'm just seeing people pulling money out of the stock market. Like right now, I've talked to a lot of people. It's like, well, my money's going to make more money in the real estate market than it is in the stock market right now. Somewhere around, like, I think last year it was like 37% were cash buyers, and this year it's actually 40. And that probably happened a lot more after March.
Yeah.
But
when interest rates start going up.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. Very true.
On that kind of, I guess I called you Obi-Wan earlier, but I was like, so in your divine wisdom, where do you see the market going?
Yes, Luke.
Yes, Luke. Tell me, where do you see? Like, I have ideas, but I want to hear it from everyone.
Yeah, no, the market. Yeah,
where
the
do you see it
market.
going?
It's interesting. I mean, because we really, if you look in the rearview mirror, the entire market. I mean, rising tide rises all ships. So all ships have gone up, obviously, in the last 18, 24 months. And so now, as we're shifting, interest rates spiking, fears of recession. I mean, we're in a recession. Correct. By the technical term. So now we're getting to that part where different ships are doing different things, and it's really becoming segmented. So I think that's going to continue for at least the next 12 months, and probably the next 24 months. And anybody who says they can predict beyond 12 months is just making stuff up. I mean, I'm probably making stuff up in 12 months. I mean, the real estate market has changed so fast. Who would have known that we'd gone from 2.9% to 6.39% interest mortgage rates in 6 months? I mean, that was just, we knew they were going to go up. They were telling us they were going to go up for the last 3 years. Then all of a sudden, boom, all at once. So that's obviously that segment's the easiest one to follow, because that's the stuff that nationally we have the most data for. Mm-hmm. For people that got to go get a 30-year mortgage, buy their house, it's their primary residence. Those, even in the market here, as hot as it was, obviously those prices have pulled way back. Even in a low inventory environment, those prices are still dropped, just because it's just a function of what kind of payment can you make. I'm seeing the second and third home market, which is a lot of what I do on Flathead Lake. Obviously, there's not a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, I'm going to buy this $5 million property and live here year round." That market is still staying strong. Inventory is still staying low. They were used to your point, the fact that the entire market's 40% cash. On the lake, it's probably more like 70% cash buyers. So it's really high. Yeah. So it's people pulling, and they're not just pulling it out of the stock market. They're pulling out cash out of real assets in other markets. They're just deciding to make a life change, whether they're coming from Tahoe, or they're coming off the coast, or they're coming out of Texas, or even out of off the East Coast in New York City. Again, I think a lot of that's fueled by the airport opening up those direct flights. Yep. That's what fuels a lot of that stuff. I mean, that's what I'm seeing, and I think some of the things that drive that, if you look at, if you start breaking down, again, so I was talking about the primary entry level primary residential segment, and if I talk about kind of the high end luxury second or third home segment, which is a lot of what Flathead Lake is, the things that those kind of buyers are looking for is they want water. They want water that's going to be there, that's clean, that's reliable. Tahoe, for example, has dropped 20 feet. I keep hearing stories about people taking their boats. People have lived on the lake their entire lives, and they drive the same way that they're always driven. All of a sudden, boom, they hit a rock and it rips their transom off their boat.
Oh, geez.
Just because it's low water that they've never seen before, and rocks are popping up they've never seen before. Combined with the fact that there's a million people living around Lake Tahoe.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
around
the crowds and the and that whole scene. So there's a lot of people selling out of Tahoe coming up here because it's what Tahoe was 50 years ago. There's a lot of people coming out of Colorado. I mean, I think that mass exodus out of California. You know, obviously we're getting our fair share of Californians here, but I think we're almost more impacted by Californians going into other Western states and driving the residents of those Western states to Montana, because we're still a little bit more primitive. We're what Colorado was 25 years ago, but with water. I mean, I literally, Colorado's been cranking down on water and water rights for the last 15, 20 years. The fact that we've seen people coming out of Seattle and Portland in this last 2 years, those were never feeder markets for us before. But I think those places are getting also squeezed by Californians that are coming up, and people just want the cultural change. So I think, it's all those things. It's a combination of, obviously the scenery, all the public lands, the water, all that stuff. I mean, we're just, if you made a checklist of where in the Rocky Mountain West you want to be to have all the outdoor activities and have all the amenities, like we hit all, we check up all the lists without the crowds.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, traditionally, what I've been told and what I've been seeing too is that like our markets, we don't even though we have kind of a micro market, we still feel the impact of the interest rates and everything from the coastal cities.
The macro stuff.
It's just a fact, but I do feel that people still want to be here, and that's kind of what you're saying is the same thing. It's like, how many places can you sail, ski, and go hike a mountain in the same day? There's not a lot of places on Earth even you can do that, and I feel like Flathead Valley is always going to be a place, a desirable place. However, you need to like all the seasons. I always say that, I always tell people that you need to like all the seasons.
But that's where, if we're talking about the second, third home segment,
correct,
you don't have to. You can just come pick and choose. You can come here for Thanksgiving, come here for Christmas, ski once in March, and then spend July and August here, and spend the rest of the time in one of your other homes, which is what people are doing. So yeah. I'm just seeing that more and more. So I think it is going to be that, to get back to your first question, where's the market going? It's going to be how that tension plays out between what's going on in the national economy and in the national markets versus the desirability and inventory of what we have in a very desirable Rocky Mountain resort town. And those things are going to be playing out, and that's where different segments are going to be popping off at different rates.
Well, okay, so I looked this morning. This is a good question. I mean, there's right now 22 active properties on Flathead Lake, like at the moment, including Cromwell Island for like $75 million.
Yep.
And so inventory-wise, where do you see that? Because
and where we've gone. Shoot, 3 years ago. So the 22 number that you cited was for residential.
Yes.
There's also another 20 land listings on the lake as well. So you're at 42 total. We used to average, so in that period of time, in the bottom of the recession, call it 2010 to 2018. We were averaging, 170 to 200 listings total, both land and residential. And most of that was probably like 100, and usually be about 120 residential listings and 50 land listings is what we'd carry in August, September, which was kind of the peak every year. So it would cycle up every year. We'd sell 50 or 60 listings every year, and then it would cycle back up to that. And so 2021, for example, we sold 146 properties on the lake. So that was, we basically, everything that was in inventory, gone. So imagine we sold the entire year's worth of inventory out. And so, and obviously there was a lot of churn. There was more stuff coming on the market. We had record listings that year too, and it came off. But yeah, the fact that, people are talking about stuff starting to loosen up, I'm just not seeing it. Just because of the inventory. You got a lake that's got 161 miles of shoreline, and there's 22 houses for sale with an average. Well, okay, so you take Cromwell Island out of it that has 4 miles of frontage, but the other 21 listings that probably have an average of 120 feet of frontage each. There's just, you do the math. There's just nothing available on the lake. And then of course the price points. We used to average, $1 million, $1.5 million was our average, transaction on the lake. Listings, residential listings. Right now, those 22 listings, average list price $4.5 million.
Jeez.
You just can't, So anything there's just nothing that comes up under $2 million to buy, and if it does, multiple offers get snapped up.
That's a really good point. You sold something pretty darn big in 2021, and I remember seeing the beautiful video for it. So how was it to sell a $20 million property?
It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. We listed it, right at the peak time. I mean, the guys that play in that segment, just know. They just have a nose for what the market's going to be, and when he didn't have to sell, but he knew that was the time to sell.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
Put it on the market in the middle of 2020. We actually had 5 offers.
What?
We had 2 that got into a bidding war, and we ended up closing at $21 million. So I mean, that's how crazy the market was in 2021.
Yeah. I had no idea you had 5 offers on the place. That's fantastic.
It's amazing, and I wouldn't even show it unless you had proof of funds.
Of course.
So I mean, I'm getting calls from stockbrokers. I'm getting one guy had the Wynn Hotel call me out of Vegas because all of his cash was in the Wynn Hotel. I mean, crazy stories. I mean, stuff that you wouldn't believe.
How people, it's weird out there sometimes.
Yeah,
like you get to learn about
a
different segment of life.
But that was exciting. I mean, that was it was actually still stands as the largest sale on Flathead Lake to date. If Bill McDavid can sell Cromwell Island for,
it's a different kind of property.
I know, but I'm just saying absolute number for a property on Flathead Lake.
Try to beat me. That's amazing.
I hope he does. Bill's a good friend of mine, and I hope he does. I hope he sells it. I hope I sell it for him.
How many square feet was that house again?
So the 20 million. It was 14,000 square feet. Jeez. It had 500 feet of frontage.
That's right.
And it was all. I mean, it was built in 2011. It was one of the newer homes of that caliber that was built on the lake. It was a one of a kind property. But the guys that were looking at it again, there were guys that were coming off of Coeur d'Alene, guys that were coming off of Tahoe. Again, wanted to get away from the crowds, and from a value perspective, on a price per front foot and a price per square foot of the construction, it was a bargain. I mean, that was not. I mean, guys like you and I that are locals are like, "Oh my gosh, $20 million." To these guys, they're like, "Oh, this is a steal." I mean, so it's that different perspective.
Yeah, that avalanche wall was like one of my favorite things in that video. Clint Eckern, I think, did that video, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that was rocking. I saw that. I was like, this is an amazing property.
It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful home.
Good. Well, and I know I called you to, I think, I show another property, and you're on your way down to San Diego, I think, dropping off art for the owner of the house. What, 24 hours after it sold?
Yeah, we couldn't get anybody to ship the art. I mean, it was sold fully furnished, but he had several valuable art pieces that he needed to get down to San Diego, and I couldn't find anybody to ship it. I found a local company that would come and take it and crate it, secure it, but we didn't have anybody who would transport it. I mean, it's 2021. I mean, you still can't find anybody to move. You can't find anybody to move your apartment, let alone move some expensive artwork across the country. And it was going to be it was going to hold up closing. I mean, he said, I can't until I can find a way to get this secured. I'm not going to do it. I said, well, all right, I'm not going to let that hold up closing. Let's go. I'll rent a U-Haul truck. I'll drive it down. And so it's funny. I got down there, and they were great. They put me up at their house in Rancho Santa Fe, took me out to dinner. I mean, they're fantastic, fantastic clients. And he asked me at one point when I was down there, he's like, well, how many clients do you do this for? I said, just you.
Yes. Client for life.
I said, until the next $20 million listing, I'd probably do it for them too.
Yeah, I would too. That's pretty good for you, man. That's okay. Congratulations.
So,
that's a cool thing, a little feather in your cap.
Yeah, it was a big year. I'm very, very, very blessed.
Good. All right. Well, we do have a lot of, we have a lot of real estate. That's what we do pretty much all day. But I need to know what makes Dave Fetveit tick. What's your fun? What's your hobby? What's your thing that you like to do the most?
Oh, what do I like to do? I mean, honestly, it's one of my problems is there's not one thing I like to do. I like to do it all. I mean, I talked to you about my board commitments earlier. I'm clearly way overcommitted and cannot say no to anything. So literally, you could ask me to do anything right now. Like, you want to go, wake surfing right now? And sure, let's go.
Yeah, I'm fine. September, it was 72 degrees. But it's going to be a low of 40 today.
It'll be warm. I wore shorts today. It was sunny. It's great.
Beautiful.
I'd probably have to boil anything that gets me outside. I just love being outside. I've always been outdoorsy, but I mean, even playing golf. Golf is an excuse to get outside for 4 hours, and I can still get a little bit of work done. Have my phone and not be completely disconnected. So I like to play a lot of golf. Love to go hiking in the winter, skiing, anything I can do to get outside. I used to do a lot of fishing. Don't have time to do a lot of fishing anymore, but I still love to fish. So anything outside, anything that's any kind of outdoor activities. You name an outdoor activity, I'm on it.
You ski blacktail or whitefish mountain
I
resort
ski
more?
blacktail. I mean, blacktail for more for sure. Just partly
right
because it's
there.
close, but I mean, shoot, we got this incredible. I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm 50. I'm not doing cliff jumping or anything.
Yeah.
Looking for the crazy stuff anymore.
neither anymore.
I don't need to get hurt. But I'm telling you, the snow on blacktail is more consistent. It's better powder. They're closed Monday, Tuesday. So like you go up Wednesday morning, you got like 2.5 days worth of powder all to yourself. And I'll go up on a Wednesday morning typically. There'll be like 10 of us skiing, and there'll be like 10 lift operators. You know them all. All my boys learned how to ski on that hill. I literally go up there and pinch myself, going, "Is this my private resort?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, lift tickets only $45 for a day pass. I mean, and the corporate rates are incredible. If you ever need to ski, I got corporate passes. Come on up.
Ooh, yes, I've been invited. Well, the thing is, I've skied blacktail probably 5 times. I usually get my pass up at Whitefish Mountain, but I've had great days up there. You know, and as I'm getting a little bit older
have you been up there recently? In the last couple of years, they cleared out a ton more terrain. So they've got this area called the Glades, which is wide open, and you can just ski. I mean, some of it varies between blue and black, and just have at it. It's a blast.
It's been 2 years, so I haven't been up there.
Yeah.
I haven't been up there since.
And the lifts are slow, so I get on my phone, get some work done.
I love it. And you got good cell reception, except if I'm on the backside of it. That's funny. What about, I always ask, Glacier National Park's like it's my jam. It's
Sure.
what I do. It's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I always ask people what it means to them. What does Glacier mean to you?
Glacier's a very, very, very important to me as well. Holds a sacred part in my life. I mean, shoot, growing up here when I was a kid, I mean, Sunday after church, we would always take a picnic lunch and go up on Lake McDonald and just pull off and, Sprague Creek and have, I mean, that there was nobody there. We had it all to ourselves, and we'd swim in the lake and have a picnic lunch. There's pictures of me as an infant, strapped to my dad's back, hiking up to, Johns Lake and Fish Lake up there. So, I mean, it's been a part of my life ever since I can remember, and I'm reminded of it every day. Being on Flathead Lake, not just because I can look, if you got a view to the north, you can actually see it, but I'm reminded every day that, I mean, all the water not all the water, 2/3 of the water that's in the lake, it came out of the park, right? I mean, Flathead Lake is fed by Glacier National Park. If it wasn't for the park, there wouldn't be water in the lake. So, I mean, it's very, very special to me. I get up there as much as I can, not nearly as much. One of the nonprofits actually that I'm also the secretary for, that I didn't tell you about earlier, was the Glacier Institute.
Nice.
So I'm actually really plugged in. It is near and dear to my heart. And Glacier Institute's a great organization because, again, it ties the educational component, which obviously is very important to me, with Glacier National Park. So it's all about getting those the wildlife education and the flora and the fauna, and getting kids up there, getting them immersed. If you saw the data about how many kids in this valley, local kids that have never been in the park, it's staggering. So anything we can do to get more people exposed, especially kids exposed to Glacier Park, I'm all about it.
100%. Glacier Institute is a good one. That's something actually that I think I need to be involved in. Maybe we should talk.
Yeah. If you want to give back, I'll take a check tonight.
I should. Yeah, I guess like here.
We got a capital campaign going on.
It's a good starting. Well, yeah, exactly.
We're rebuilding Big Creek right now.
There. Yes, good job. It's like promoting everywhere. Oh no, Dave, it's been great. I really appreciate your time, man, and getting to connect with you. And like I said, this truly is, like, no joke, kind of an honor to be able to sit with you and talk with you about the market, because you've been here for a long time, and you mean something to the community. And I know you've got, I want to promote you a little bit, or promote yourself, actually,
Sure.
if anything, and kind of like, how do we find you with Pure West Real Estate as like the Obi-Wan of Flathead Lake, Glacier National Park too. Just call it for everything.
Well, it's when Glacier National Park flushes the toilet. We get Flathead Lake.
Yes, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Oh my gosh. So how do we find you? You have a newsletter they can subscribe to?
Yeah, no.
Like,
so I do. So ever since 2007, I've been doing a monthly newsletter, electronic newsletter, email called the Waterfront Market Report. So I track all of Flathead Lake sales, all the listings, median prices, all that kind of stuff. Basically every month you find out which homes sell. I mean, for example, in August we had 11 sales, and all 11 of them were listed out. Mm-hmm. The price per front foot, which is there's a kind of a factor that I track. If you adjust out the improvements for any given piece of property on Flathead Lake and price out what the price per front foot would be,
Yeah.
which is also how you're assessed by taxes, by the way. And so I tracked that number throughout the years, and just as a benchmark, it started out, I think it peaked out about 8,000 or 9,000 back in 2007, dropped to as low as 2,800 in like 2010. This is average of the whole lake, all properties that have sold. And now we're up to last month, as of year to date, right now it's $9,700 per front foot. So it's the highest since I've been tracking it since 2007, and I can't believe it would be higher before that. So that's just kind of a benchmark of where it's at. But if you want to follow all that data, just go to davidfetveit.com, and right on the front page you can subscribe to that newsletter. Again, it's a monthly newsletter that comes in and just tracks all that data and kind of shows what's been selling and what's listed, what's available, and where the market's going.
Awesome. Perfect. Dave, thank you again.
Yeah,
It's been good times. Hopefully we'll see each other out there. I can actually tie a deal up with you at some point.
There you go. One of these days.
I've been trying
hard.
Trying so hard.
Yeah.
So
sell one of my lake listings, will you?
I'm gonna
Then
try
we'll
my
both
best.
be happy.
Exactly. Dave, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
Love
for
being here.
Thanks a lot, folks. Austin Baumgarten with Keller Williams Realty Northwest Montana and Hidden Homes Montana with Dave Fetveit. Over and out. Over here.
All right.
Awesome. Welcome back. No, are we even doing? We're not doing that. We just, you know what I'm saying? Welcome back.
You should be welcome back. Maybe you can sell commercials someday.
I know. We need sponsors, bro. We need sponsors. We do. There you go. We got Flathead Lake Brewing Companies.
Yeah, we should definitely.
Pure West sponsoring us. That'd be fantastic.
Hidden
Oh,
Home
man.
Show brought to you by Flathead Lake Brewing Company.
Dude, he just gave us one. Don't worry, there'll be outtakes. I love it.